Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 367 of Picks and Ponies right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. If my voice sounds a little hoarse or I'm not quite fully with it, first full day back at school with the students, did like a lot more talking than I want. Got to lay down the law, people. Got to let them know how things are going to go this year. So I apologize if my voice is a little bit shaky, but thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. Please make sure you hit that subscribe on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Hit the notification bell also at the top right on YouTube so you know when new content will arise, and smash that like button below the video player as well. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Tip sheets, they're rocking and rolling. Look below the video player. We still have individual weekend Saratoga and Del Mar meet power picks. It's hard to believe that these meets are starting to wind down a little bit. Only 3 weeks left of Saratoga, and Del Mar is now starting this week on the back half of their meeting. It's really amazing. But look down below the video player. Check out our website as well, hhhracingpodcast.com. And also, please get in touch with Matt Cuter of Adelphi Racing Club. Great organization, very proud sponsors of this show. I've had several winners with them. I cannot recommend the Adelphi Racing Club enough. Matt at adelphiracing.com. One word. Again, Matt at adelphiracing.com or adelphiracing.com. That first one was Matt's email. Matt at adelphiracing.com is his email. Their website is adelphiracing.com. One word. All right. Big show tonight. We're going north of the border, people. It is Woodbine's biggest day of the year. It is King's Plate Day. They have many really good stakes, including, of course, the King's Plate. If you're not familiar, it used to be called the Queen's Plate. Now it's the King's Plate, of course, due to the passing of Queen Elizabeth. It is basically the Canadian Kentucky Derby, always a fun race with big fields. And to help me through the card and the race we're going to talk about, let's bring on my great co-host, first from the Saratoga Special and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Wow. Paul Halloran, and from the East Coast of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco. Guys, Pete, nice shirt. How you doing? I brought my white shirt out, which I don't wear probably as much, but I also got my Breeders' Cup hat, guys, because you know what? I'm starting to get that Breeders' Cup kind of feel. We only have like 2.5 months, and we're starting to see horses that are running now that we know are going to run in the Breeders' Cup. How are we doing this evening?
Fantastic. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Pete. Everything's great.
Terrific. Good to hear from you.
Everything is awesome. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Howard, please.
No, I'm just happy to hear you guys are feeling so chirpy and awake and ready to go. Guys, this Woodbine card, I thought it's really good. And as I mentioned before, the Breeders' Cup, we're going to see some races. People really start paying attention. Now, look, I'm a little nuts, as everyone knows. I'm starting to think Breeders' Cup already, but I will be playing in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge along with, some people in this podcast. And you got to start watching these races, guys. I talked about it with the Bet and Boozing guys on Wednesday. I mean, it sure saves you, Pete and Paul, on watching 1,000 replays come late October if you pay attention, especially these next 2 months, right, Pete?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the easy thing is obviously it's hard to watch all of them live depending on what you're doing. But the good thing about horse racing, it doesn't take that long to catch up. You could bang out whatever the big races are for the weekend in, 20 minutes if you just sit and watch some replays. So it's not too bad. You could take some notes if you want, and then you'll be prepared. So when you get to the Breeders' Cup, it's a lot easier to handicap when you've seen a lot of the races. You don't have to go back and watch every single replay that looks important.
I mean, sometimes you got movies to watch on Saturday afternoons.
I got tons
right?
of them, man. Yeah, well, it slows down around Breeders' Cup time. There's not as many. The summer's over, so it'll slow down a bit. But yeah.
By the way, you must have like triple VIP treatment at whatever your local theater is. I mean,
I don't. I always tag them in my tweet now.
I noticed
because I'm hoping that one day they'll say, "Hey, you guys go a lot. Here's some free passes." Because I'll tell you what, going to the movies every week, it's quite pricey when you when you add in tickets and snacks and special popcorn buckets that we like to buy. So
I don't want to like throw your own, your location under the bus, but what it's probably like $15 minimum, or like for Jackson it's 15, for you it's like 20 or something, or
no, it's not that much because we just go to, it's just a basic theater, but it's probably 20 plus for the tickets. Then we always spend like at least 30 on food, and then like last week we got the special. He got a special Beetlejuice bucket, which was like another whatever the hell it costs, another $20 for a special bucket. It lights up and it's awesome, but it adds up. We're going back Monday. I'll be out of town this weekend, but Monday we'll be back in our normal seats for Alien.
all right.
For anybody
Very good.
cares.
Well, gotta get, Paul, he's got to save some popcorn for Matt Miller and send it on to him. If he's going to get some free popcorn vouchers, we got to send it on to Matt Miller, right, Paul?
Matt, I think Matt's here. Matt,
he is.
You would have loved it. So we bought the special bucket. So with it, they gave you the extra size popcorn on the side. And I'm like, I don't even eat popcorn during the movie. I only eat it until the movie starts.
Oh.
So I was like, what am I going to do with 85 pounds of popcorn that I have here?
Wow.
So,
all right.
Mike, Matt, we could have used you this last week. We could have used some popcorn help for sure.
Matt, Harry, free refills at AMC for him. Ask me if I've ever taken them to go after the movie. I wonder, Paul. I'm guessing he might have mentioned that in his book. Guys, we're going to get to the handicapping here in just a second. I will also say, Paul, that in a month from now is going to be Woodbine Mile Day. And that's when they also have like the summer and then it's Talma and a lot of these 2-year-old turf races. And as we know, as you guys know, there's some it looks like there's preps on Saturday for those 2-year-old mile turf races, of which we will then see some of those horses in the Breeders' Cup juvenile turf races. So again, you got to pay attention to these cars.
Yeah, those the Summer and the Natelner, if you look at the history of the Breeders' Cup, they've proven to be, especially the Natelner, has proven to be an effective prep. So yes, that is that you can get to San Diego through Toronto.
You sure can. We're going to be talking about races 6 through 11. Now, for everyone knows at home, race 6 is the start of a 20 cent. We'll talk about that in a second too. 20-cent base bet, $250,000 guaranteed pick 5. That's why we're starting with race 6. Guys, I'm not a race secretary. Wouldn't you want to end your biggest horizontal sequence with the King's Plate?
Can we do the rant now and get it out of the way?
Sure,
Pete?
Go ahead.
So when I realized that the King's Plate was not in the sequence, just getting to it the first time, I said, oh, they must have drawn a short field and they wanted to keep it out. And then I had to scroll. I got carpal tunnel from scrolling on my iPad for the goddamn 13-horse King's Plate that's not in that guaranteed sequence. Okay? I mean, we can't call the Queen. She's dead. Can we get Chuck on the line and say, Chuck, what the F? And look, I know that there is a late pick 5, the Degenerate Special. It goes to the last 2 races. I play them all the time. But how is a 13-horse King's Plate not in this guaranteed sequence?
I don't know, but
right, we don't know.
And you have 5 stakes and only 2 of them are in the last one. It's so weird the way they structured the whole card, basically.
I figured it out. The racing secretary was drinking Molson and Labatt's when putting the sequence together.
That will do it.
Well, there you go. I do agree with Paul Conlon that Robert Geller is one of the top 3 race callers in the business. He's very underrated. He's excellent. You know, he reminds me, guys, of Dave Rodman, who never gets the credit he deserves until it's around Pimlico time. Everyone's like, wow, this Dave Rodman's really good. Robert Geller is also very good. Anyway, guys, let's get on to the sequence. It's fun. It's exciting. We're going to show it right now. Let me take the banner off the screen. Let me go right to it right now. Again, race 6. We're going to talk about the 1 allowance race, guys. Race 9 more quickly than the others because the others are stake races. This starts the 20 cent. Again, 20 cent base bet. So let's just talk about that for a second, guys. We like covering Woodbine. We've talked about that. Pete, that does not mean for all the bettors out there that you should spread more because you can. Don't throw horses in there just because, right, Pete?
No, no, play it the same way. But if you're a little skinny, instead of spreading, play it for 40 if you want.
Yep.
Don't add horses just because you can. You'd rather hit it twice than hit it once and spend too much money to hit it once. So
Totally
that's where I
agree.
land. Yeah.
The Bet 365 Soaring Free Stakes starts at 3:03 Eastern. It is one of the 2-year-old turf stakes, 6.5 furlongs, 150,000 in the purse. Field of 9. Moreline favorite is number 5, Mensa, for Cassie and husbands, and I am assuming Noah Maher is watching, and for Resolute Racing. Guys, I got a little bit of a threat today, and I don't know if I should call the police or what I should do. Mr. Maher threatened me that if I don't pick Mensa on top, there's going to be hell to pay. So let's find out. Uh-oh. I don't know if Pete picked him. No, we're going to find out. Let's see who picked Mensa on top as we go ahead and go to the PPs. And I'm bringing up our band. Whoops, I'm going to bring up our picks right now on the bottom of the screen. Here we go. Wah, wah, wah. Sorry, Noah. None of us are going with Mensa. Wow.
I don't even have him in the top 3. I didn't, it's funny. I didn't even pay attention that it was Resolute. I completely missed that. So I probably wouldn't have anyway, but I would have at least apologized to Noah in advance.
Look at my favorite nephew. I'm going 265 and Paul's going 265. And Pete's pretty darn close to. He's going 926. Paul, let's start, or sorry, Pete, let's start with you first here. I know you guys love when I talk about the W word. All I'm going to say is this. The nice thing about synthetic is my picks really won't change much. Of course, if there's scratches, they will. But turf to sin, if they're running on sin, I'm assuming they can run on turf and vice versa. You see a lot of similarities. Most turf horses can run well on synthetic. It's not going to bother me. I will say, though, for someone who grew up, well, not grew up, but who saw a lot of synthetic racing in Arlington, and I don't know if you guys have actually like felt or touched like synthetic or Tapeta. It's all different. It is a little bit waxy. And here's my point. If it does rain and it does get moist, it tends to be very speed favoring. It hardens up, right? Just think about Play-Doh or any kind of like waxy surface. When it gets hot and sticky, you tend to get that outside closing flow and it's more tiring. When it does rain, it gets more compacted and speed does usually hold better. I just want to keep that in mind for everyone watching tonight who's betting Woodbine on Saturday to pay attention a little bit, at least, to the moisture on the surface. Homie. Pete's going with his homie, Ravelli. Wow, the breeding is Wesley Ward, trained by Ravelli. You think this horse is fast, Pete, early? What do you think?
Yeah, it doesn't get, between those two, there's definitely going to be some speed here. I mean, this is a good race. I really thought this was a tough race. I had a bunch of horses. I think when I went through, I had 5 horses that I thought were sort of A-level win contenders. So I went with this one just because I'm like, you know what? Ravelli, man, non-graded stakes turf sprints. 7 for 14 wins, 12 for 14 in the money. He gets his horses ready. I like the fact, just with the breeding, that the extra furlong and a half for this horse, I don't think should be a problem. I like the fact that he's outside of the other speed, who's most likely going to be, I assume Mensa is going to be the speed, most likely. Homie's going to be on the outside. Didn't sit off in the last one, but didn't exactly break and go straight to the lead. So I'm thinking could maybe sit a little bit and just sit off Mensa or just clear and try and just take them all the way around. There's just a lot to like. I think the horse is fast. I think the horse is probably going to get better. And, you're going from Ward to Ravelli. Whereas if you were looking at a horse and you're like, man, I'm losing Ward with a fast turf sprinter, you might not like that. But like you said, going to Ravelli, I don't have those concerns. I think he can do sort of some of the same stuff with his horses.
I'm guessing it's a private purchase. I mean, I find that you don't see Ward losing horses. Like usually when a horse is a Ward that's good, it stays a Wesley Ward. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
this is interesting. I don't have him in my top 3 only because I'm a little bit worried about the class level of the last race and that, this is quite a big stretch out, but obviously this horse can win. David Cohen, by the way, is having a reinvigoration and having very good meet at Hawthorne, guys. And I should know because I'm covering Hawthorne every day that they run. So Homie is definitely interesting. Paul, let's talk about the 2. I thought this was a fantastic prep. Number 2 test score for Graham Motion, Ramon Hernandez. This is a maiden, but I thought he did a lot of good things in that maiden race at Saratoga.
I agree. And I have a few horses in the sequence. I think 2 that are second time Graham Motions. And, Graham is one of those guys that they're not necessarily cranked up 100% the first time. So when they run well the first time, I think you can deduce that they're pretty good. And I thought this race was effective. Howard, Governor Sam, as I know you know, went on to win a stakes at Monmouth coming out of this race. The horse that won the race wire to wire. I mean, he was 3-5, and you could see how effortless it was on the lead. And he gets pushed a little bit around the bend here, but he, he's off. But the horse, the horse making ground, as you'll see him there on the outside.
Right there, he had that 8 cut in front of him, and he did have to come to the outside.
Yes. Yeah, that was a little bit. Yeah, I don't think he was going to get him. This horse was long gone, but I do think he should move forward off this. I think it was I think the race is going to prove to be a good race. And Pete, the only thing, I looked hard at the 9, but I got a funny feeling that race was really slow. That 0 for 7 of the horses to come out of that race in their next start, and only 2 of them registered buyer figures, and they were a 24 and a 38. So
Yep.
I was trying to kind of balance the whole, Plus, Ward's sending a 2-year-old to Indianapolis to run on the turf for the first start. I thought that was.
Oh, I'm with you. I thought this was
26-1, by the way. So
and that was kind of why I put the horse on top. But like I said, I was sort of deep. If I on my ticket, if I was doing a caveman, if we were doing a caveman, I'd probably be about 4 or 5 deep in this race, just because I think there's a bunch of good horses. It's funny with Motion, real quick before we move off the 2. He's really good second-time starters going to a stakes race off, maiden first time, second stakes. But he was only 2 for 38 in stakes races at Woodbine. So it's like it's a weird balance of, for some reason, he doesn't seem to do as well at Woodbine, but he does really well taking those second-time starters into a stakes race. So, like anything, the stats can contradict themselves, but it's just funny that he could bring it here, and we'll see if that comes into play, that he just doesn't have a great record here at Woodbine in these kind of races.
Yeah, this horse, Howard, he might need some pace to run into this horse, shortening up a full furlong. I mean, extending. What am I saying? It's been a long week.
That run by test score, Paul, I agree with you, looked very preppy to me. Like he was never asked early. He's only asked to run late. You guys saw he switched leads mid-stretch. He's still goofy and learning. I just think he might love a long, stretch at Woodbine and the extra distance. It just didn't feel like well, he was 16-1. Usually I'd be against these kind of horses, guys, but it felt like that's not near what he can do. And Governor Sam, like you said, Paul, is a very nice horse. I think that was a very live race. The other horse that I like, and you sort of agree, Paul, and Paul, Pete, you got this one third. Paul, is Cairo Caper, who got a 76 buyer. A lot of these horses are coming off of good trips and wins, which is expected. What I personally like about this horse is I like the extra time off. I also think that distance will suit, while I'm not sure the distance will suit for others. Any other thoughts you want to add, either one of you, on Cairo Caper, the number 6, who is 3-1? So we're not, picking a kind of bomb here, but I think he's very logical too.
I kind of like the steady and solid work tab that he's had since that last one. So again, I like when they're sort of holding their form after an impressive race. So yeah, I think this one's got a lot. I mean, there's just it's got the top buyer in the field. There's just a lot to like about this horse. It's funny. Nathan Squires 1 for 17 with a maiden winner last out. So again, small sample size, so I wouldn't read too much into it. But again, that's a weird one when you break the maiden, then you move up. Sometimes some trainers just don't have as much success doing that. So, but you could always, I think this horse is good enough to overcome something like that.
Yep. By the way, Sylvain just got back from Alaska. Wow.
Nice.
That's cool, Sylvain. Hope you had a good time. I would like to go there at some point. Especially before all the glaciers disappear. That's it. That'd be a cool place. Look, let's talk about Mensa right now. Here's Noah in the chat. Again, Noah Maher, co-host of Ben and Boozin, author of our Del Mar Power Picks. He works for Resolute, guys, so you can take this, to his word. He said Mensa's doing well, had his first breeze back after the win on training track. Patrick Husbands was up and said he'll like the turf. So I'm nothing against Mensa. He was really good last time. I just think there might be a lot of speed, and stepping up an extra furlong might be problematic. But I mean, this horse wins. It wouldn't shock me, guys, at all.
I thought he leaned. I just thought, just based on breeding, I thought he was probably a better synth/dirt horse. So
Okay.
that was, when you're nitpicking, again, I think he was probably like my fourth one. When you're nitpicking against a bunch of horses who you think have almost an equal shot, then something's got to knock them down. You can only pick 3 in our show. So
I mean,
it was interesting how complexity has become a really hot sire, but
yes,
doing the formulator on this, if I did it right, with turf sprinters, only 0 for 2 is progeny. So most of the success has come not on turf, although 2 is, as Pete would say, a very small sample size.
Yes. But also really good on the synth. You see that small sample size too, but 3 for 5 wins. So that's why I'm like,
Medaglia d'Oro mare, certainly.
Hey, $740K, Paul, on a 12.5 sire. That's pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
So you figure somebody liked him.
That last win was definition of hands and heels, guys. That was just so easy. It's a fun race. And again, I can't emphasize enough for everyone watching, listening at home, live or in a replay. I have a feeling, guys, there's horses running Saturday Woodbine that will be running in Del Mar, or at Del Mar Breeders' Cup Friday, actually, most likely. Although the next race, guys, which is a sprint race, there are 2 horses in this next race, the Bold Venture. I wouldn't be shocked if one of these horses is in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, because the next race, guys, I'm really looking forward to. And I don't usually say that about sprint races at Woodbine on the Tapeta. It's the Bold Venture. It's a grade 3, race 7, 6.5 furlongs on the Tapeta, $150,000. It's only a field of 7, but there are 2 really good horses, at least in my opinion. The number 3, Patches O'Houlihan, which I know Paul and I have a little bit of history with, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other horse, who is 4-1 on the morning line, but I got a feeling this horse could take a lot more money. The number 6, Play Me a Tune, very creative name, Ontario bred for Josie Carroll and Kashi Kimura. Here's our picks on the bottom of the screen. I am going 6-3-1. Pete is going 6-3-2. Paul's going 6-7-3. We're all going with the 6. And again, Paul and I are both going with the same horse. I wonder if this is going to be a theme throughout this show. Pete, I'm going to go to you first. Play Me a Tune is only 2 lifetime starts. I don't think you can be more impressive in 2 lifetime starts. This is a serious horse, and I am fascinated to see what he does. And it's another real nice horse on Saturday in Patches O'Houlihan.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the reason. I mean, yeah, Patches O'Houlihan is just really tough and really fun horse, but Play Me a Tune, you just don't know what this horse can be based off those first 2 starts. They were completely dominant. I like the fact that they weren't just, hey, I'm going to put this horse on the lead and just let the horse go. Was able to sit off sort of professionally. Again, it was big favorite. Not sure if he beat a ton of stuff, but who cares? I mean, again, if you beat him that impressively, it is what it is. So I'm looking at it going, what if this horse is just awesome? And if this horse is just awesome and you're getting him as your second choice, then that's probably that you might not get this horse at a second choice again if he wins this one impressively.
We talk a lot on this show, Pete and Paul, about the visual. His numbers are plenty good, but his acceleration and his professionalism and only 2 lifetime starts. Now he's a 4-year-old Paul, but he's playing music. He switches leads like immediately, and his reach here, Paul, is really. I just love the way this horse runs. I think he's really good.
Yeah, I agree, and I also agree with the 4-1 off of those 2 races. Although we didn't talk about it, but the 4 is 3-1 morning line. He's going to take some money. And the 3, of course, is Patches O'Houlihan, not O'Halloran. O'Houlihan is 8 for 10 lifetime and will definitely take money. So, but I think the 6 is more like 5 to 2 than 4 to 1. But,
Yep.
96 and 95. It occurred to me doing this, and I haven't really looked at Woodbine that closely until this card, but boy, it just seems like there's a lot of big numbers up there. I'm not disputing them. It's just an observation. But, to come out of the chute with a 96, I mean, that is run. I don't care what they're running on.
Well, his time form 122 is as good as Patches O'Houlihan has had. Basically, I mean, I think Patches O'Houlihan maybe had a 124 in the last one, but out of this, first race to be that high level, yeah, for sure.
Paul, I don't know if you remember the September 16th vigil, the grade 3, but you and I were trying very hard to beat Patches O'Houlihan. He broke our heart when the second place finisher was like 35 to 1, who we both had in the pick 5. Remember that day in that show? And Patches held on. He's an interesting horse, guys, because he's obviously really good, but it's just weird that it seems like he runs in a lot of races without a lot of early speed to challenge him. I don't know if that's because he's just running up at Woodbine or what the story is. We got a 103 last time, but again, guys, I just, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because we're trying to beat this horse, I just don't see a lot of early speed again. I think the whole key to the race might be first Empire, guys, and how hard he's sent. But if Patches gets loose again, even a horse like, Play Me a Tune will be a little bit up against it, won't he, Paul?
Yeah, I mean,
Paul,
if you look at
right?
the time form, right, Paul? That time form makes it a little
Someone's got to
scary.
go after this horse a little bit, right?
Well, I think there's plenty of speed here.
Not according to time form, there isn't.
Well, I mean, Cassie has 2 horses in the race, so you figure that they're not going to try to run each other into the ground. But don't you think that one of them is going to try to go? I mean, I use the 7 as a price. You mentioned First Empire. I think this has the look of a classic the other Cassie, and gets a good trip from out there. Although he has 2 long shots, and the way he is up there. I'm going to try to get one of both of them on the board, probably by using both of them. But yeah, I don't think this 3 has a cakewalk to the lead. No disrespect to friend Mr. Time Form.
I mean, he's not going to get away with a 20. If he gets away at first quarter at 22.7, he's going to win. I mean, I just, and I hope he's not. It's funny, Paul, because I like the other Cassie a little bit, the 1. As a little bit of a long shot play, because I think the 7's going to go after the 3 at least a little
use
bit.
Them both.
And the 1 is getting good, and it's only a 4-year-old, and Savachi's really good, and it's Gary Barber, blah blah blah. Anyway, Pete, it's a fun race. You've got Ironstone, who I think actually is cross center. We'll see where he goes.
Yeah, I thought Ironstone fit a little bit better here, but again, it's hard to know, and it's in the next race, so it's between this one and the next one. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, but that was more of a just that you have to pick a third horse. I really like the top 2 choices, and I wouldn't even mind a nice exacta with the nice 6-3 if we can get it. I see what it's paying.
I agree. I think it's pretty much a 2-horse race. I wouldn't completely rule out one of those horses going to the Breeders' Cup sprint. Now, I don't know if they can handle straight dirt, but by the numbers, guys, the sprint division right now in this country is sort of meh to me. It's really not there. There's no elite powers. There's no Gunnites. I mean, this is not the strongest year for dirt sprinters, guys. I mean, if one of these horses can step up that we just mentioned, why not? I mean, I would take a flyer in a Breeders' Cup sprint situation, but we'll have to see. Let's go to the next race, guys. The next race is race 8, the Bet 365. It's the King Edward Stakes, or better known as the King Eddie. Grade 3 on turf, at least scheduled on turf. If it switches to Tapeta, I'm guessing they'd run a mile and a 16th on the Tapeta. I don't think they would cut it to 7. In fact, I'm pretty sure it would be a mile and a 16th on the Tapeta. Anyway, $200,000. Big favorite, the number 8, Filo de Ariana, a horse we've covered in the show a bunch of times. He's now 8. Cassie and Kimura. Here's our picks on the bottom of the screen. And we are all going to chalk out with Filo de Ariana. Guys, I almost didn't pick him. I don't know how you guys felt, but I sort of defaulted him. I think 4 to 5 though is crazy to me. Paul, your thoughts on Filo de Ariana in this mile turf event?
Well, Howard, my thoughts are when you have nothing clever to offer, don't try to get clever.
Okay.
And I looked at the race. I'm a broken record. We always talk about trying to beat the favorite. And this horse did not run well in the Jaipur. However, he lost to the fastest turf horse in the country in Cogburn, Arzak, who's a graded stakes winner, and Star of Mystery, who's another Godolphin monster. So, yeah, I think Kimura gets the trip he wants from out there. I don't think this is a particularly tough field, maybe because people weren't willing to, weren't cutting in line, to quote JK, to run against this horse. But hey, look, anything can happen, but I would think it would be a major upset if this horse loses.
Really? Major upset.
Major.
Okay. By the way, I put this out on X, guys. We are not live on our X platform. Actually, it's on Kyle's. We lost our premium check mark, but don't panic. As I found out, the reason is I changed my profile picture, guys, as you probably saw, to me with Gemmin 10 instead of the cartoon, thinking it'd be a little more nicer to have me with a horse that's a little more personal. And then I found out that X finds that a little bit facetious or a little bit, nefarious possibly. Now they got to make sure that I'm not, some bot didn't take over our X platform and account. And so it takes like 3 or 4 days for them to, I don't know, talk to Elon Musk, guys. I think I've got his number on my phone.
Yeah,
No,
we'll call him after the show and we'll
I
figure
don't.
it out.
He's too busy doing. He's busy doing other things. Anyway, so what we should be on for Saturday and Sunday. I'm hoping, guys, just to let people know. A major upset, Pete, if 8 loses.
Well, I think the field didn't come up great. I didn't love anybody else. This horse is. I mean, just Paul sort of alluded to it, but if you look at the winners of all the races, it's either him or mostly some awesome horse. If you look just down the PPs there, so it's tough. 4 for 4 at Woodbine. Loves this track. The one cool thing is we have the last 2 winners of this race in here. This Philo Di Ariana won it 2 years ago, and I think the 6 War Bomber won it last year. So that's something very cool. I'm a sucker for defending champions or former champions of races. I always enjoy that.
Here's my question for both you guys and people watching and listening at home. Why has this horse been sprinting this year only? I find that, there's nothing wrong with it. He's doing great. I just find that a little weird. Am I overthinking? He was really solid last year going a mile. Does Cassie think he's a better miler? It's funny, guys, because when they're 8s and they get older, they tend to stretch out further, right? Because they don't have that like quick burst acceleration anymore. This horse seems to be doing just fine at this age. I just found it a little bit weird, Paul, that Cassie has not been going a route this year. Again, who cares? Is that your response? No big deal.
Well, I'm just thinking where else he could have run him. I guess he could have run him in the Hall of Fame's a mile, right? I'm thinking of the big graded stakes at a mile. The Hall of Fame, I believe, is
no, that's
a mile,
for 3-year-olds, though. That's for 3-year-olds.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, he's 5 years.
He's not good enough to win this 4-star Dave. Is that the thought there? He's just not
that good.
I meant,
yeah. That's.
What about the race before the 4-star Dave? It's the. I don't know. There's got to be some decent 1-mile races on turf. I'm sure there are.
The horse is 4 for 4 at Woodbine. He is getting up there. Right. Yeah. Does Cassie look at this as a softer landing? Well, yeah, I think so. And he's right. It is a very much a softer landing.
Did you guys watch the Cruden Bay race last time? I thought Cruden Bay was pretty good last time. He waited. He got a really good ride, but he waited, exploded late. I thought he won. He won by a nose, but I thought he beat War Bomber guys on the square. I think Cruden Bay is getting good, and I wouldn't completely discount him from the rail with a horse that clearly has sort of reinvigorated himself this year as a 6-year-old. Pete, you agree? You got this one second.
Yeah, I just think his problem will be he's really going to need to heat it up. He just has been starting really slow. I mean, these two races, he's almost gotten worse. Last year, he was a little bit more tactical. Now they put him on the turf for these last two, and he's broken. It's funny, his last three races on the turf, he's broken way in the back. And, he was a little more tactical on the synth. It was against lighter company, too, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. But yeah, I think he's really good. I just wasn't sure. I thought Philo D'Ariana would just maybe get a better trip, and it would be hard for the one to run that horse down unless the pace really does heat up unexpectedly.
Here's Kroon Bay. Here's War Bombers, the 3-star. Kroon Bay just ran this horse down. I mean, fair and square. It just looked like Kroon Bay was like just getting warmed up at this point. So
yeah, he beat him relatively. It looks, the neck is. I don't think it does the win justice. I thought he won it relatively comfortably. He had him measured the whole way.
I agree. I mean, Paul, we'll talk about horizontal plays here at the end, but if Philo is a standout, and patches win, I don't really care what happens the other three races unless there's going to be a 40-1. It's just not going to pay very much, right? I mean,
yes, that is a problem. Yeah, you don't want to have it for 20 cents in that scenario.
No, definitely not. Let's go to race 9, guys, and respectfully to everyone, all the horses and connections of race 9, like they care. We're going to go through this more quickly only because we have 2 more to get through after this. And
go to Paul first. Go to Paul first. I hate this race. Go to Paul first.
All right, we'll go to Paul. Guys, look at the bottom of the screen. Look at this. We're all going with the same horse. And I just want to point out again, Paul and I have the same horse on top, the 4. I'm going 4-10-7. Pete's going 4-6-7. Paul's going 4-1-3. And per my good friend Pete's request, I will go to Mr. Halloran first.
Thank you.
Never surprise. Kevin Attard, Kimura, a horse guys that we know, and I didn't even realize this horse trained or changed trainers. Really, I don't know why I didn't know that or didn't recognize it, but this was a nice clutcher. Knights Kevin Attard, 5-2 morning line. Again, we're not searching for prices, but again, guys, everyone knows we all, especially me, love to beat favorites and search for prices, but I'm not going to throw crap out there if I don't think it's going to stick. I just think never surprise is very logical here, Paul.
Yeah, and everyone knows about if you don't follow Woodbine closely, you certainly know about Cassie anyway. But Kevin Attard is certainly outstanding and one of the top 2 or 3 guys up there. And it looks like he had a get acquainted race with him, ran him 7 furlongs to get him a race, and then. Last time he stretched him out to 1 1/8 and looked like a winner, but got nabbed late. I would say this cut back to 1 1/16 coming off that last race, and the fact that it's the 3rd time that he's with Attard. I think all lines up positively for a win here.
I'm wondering, Pete, and I don't know the background story, but I'm wondering if Rapoli just was not upset with Pletcher, but just decided this horse isn't quite good enough to cut the mustard and top grade stakes on the East Coast and decide, you know what, let's ship him to a place that he can win some money to a good trainer. It feels that way, right?
That's what I thought. Yeah, I mean, without trying to read anybody's mind, and I don't like to get involved in that too much because you never know. But that sounded pretty logical to me, or that's the way I thought about it too.
Yeah. So this horse is very good, but there's some others in here.
I mean, somebody made it. I forget who said it in the chat. I don't see it there. Paul Conlon hasn't won a race since 2021. So that's an interesting little fact. Has a lot of seconds in there. Has recent seconds. So
yeah.
This was a race where I basically almost had no A's my first pass through. I didn't like any of them. I was like, so it was one of those where I was like, this is a toss up, but it wouldn't shock me if the favorite won, which sucks when it's a toss up race.
That would make betting the ABC ticket a little more difficult.
It makes it a little harder. You have to put somebody in that first square. It doesn't work as well, right?
Let's pick one horse other than the 4 guys. Pete, I'll just go to you here. Talk about Ron's Gizmo, the 6, 4-1 morning line.
Yeah, I just thought there was potentially some pace here, and I thought this one is a pretty nice closer. I like the races. The sad thing is I like the races on the synth a little bit better, which doesn't bode as well since we're on the turf here, unless we come off for some reason. But I just thought there was a couple of things. Two back, I thought just had a wide trip, losing to Never Surprised. I thought this horse just had a wide trip and then was trying to close into not the quickest of paces. Didn't love the trip. Maybe can work out a better trip this time. But again, I'm sort of, likes Woodbine. I was sort of stretching it a bit to even find who I liked in the top three. So.
Yeah, I thought if it's not the 4, it could be a lot, which is why I went with a little bit of a fuzzy that I'll talk about a minute. Jim Pilars, who, of course,
I'm
from
glad
Buffalo.
he said the rider change. That was a note I had. I really like the rider change.
Yeah, that
too.
is
Sorry. Yeah, good call, Jim.
Excellent. I agree with that. Matt Miller chimes in saying, need to give Equine Edge a shout out here. Just nailed the late double Del Mar. Hey, they gave out a free square, went off at 2 to 5. That is a free square, but the double, the 5 to 2 paid 12 for 2. So there you go, 5 to 1. Nothing wrong with the 5 to 1 double. I wonder if Kyle Roscoe had a piece of that. He likes those kind of bets. Paul, let's talk about the 1. I'm going to talk about the 10. We're going to move on. Classic Motown 8 to 1. Murray Drexler, only a 4-year-old. Paul Moran, a little bit. I think it's Paul, the jockey. Underrated jockeys, 14%, and wins with prices. I know. What do you like about this one?
Well, I like. I thought the first race moving up to Woodbine off a semi-long layoff, 3 months, was okay, and then came back with a win last time as the favorite. This is a step up, but I like the fact that he's won on both surfaces. So if we do, Howard gets all excited and it comes off the turf and goes to the synthetic.
Wait a minute, I don't want it to come off the turf.
Well, you seem to get pretty excited when they do.
What? All right.
We're gonna call you. Pete. I'm gonna start calling him Uncle Sin. Anyway, I'm just that. looking for to quote you, Uncle, a fuzzy. I thought coming off a win, which is a good angle for Marty Drexler. Marty Drexler's having a great meet, having a good year. 20% for the year. He's 22% off the win. The spacing of the races is good. The numbers are good. The 80 buyer is certainly right in the mix here. So yeah, I thought as a price, that would be my price to get on the ticket.
Okay. And my price is the 10, guys. And there's reasons why. Cool Kiss, 15 to 1. Nothing wrong with the connections of Louis Contreras and Michael DePaulo. Now, this horse has run only 4 times on turf, and maybe this is a better Sin horse. I don't think you really know yet, but he's only 4 years old. And when you watch that last replay, I'm not going to bring it up, guys. He had no chance that race. The top 2, including Never Surprised, by the way, were basically 1-2 around the racetrack. Look at the fractions, guys. They went 49 and 3 to the half, going a mile and 1/8. This horse was wide, had no chance at all. Made a middle move into the fast part of the race, flattened out late. If you go to previous races, when they take this horse back, he can make some big runs. I mean, he was in the plate trial. He was a nice 3-year-old last year. He was in the King's Plate. I just have a feeling if it heats up, this horse is going to make a nice run late in a race that I guess you can't trust, Never Surprise. And I think there's other speed. I think he's a little bit sneaky here. So he's going to need a trip like a lot of these others, but don't sleep on Cool Kiss. I think the number 10 Cool Kiss is a bit interesting, at least underneath.
I had him as one of those underneath type where you could maybe do a try, whatever, a back try, or put him in all the spot, put him in the second, third spot, maybe.
Yep.
I don't
reverse key or back
reverse
wheel,
key or back wheel or something like that. Yeah.
I hear that's a bet you like to make. I think we're going to be talking about the similar kind of situation.
Yeah. Key box. I don't know if this was a key box horse because I don't love him on the win end, but
no. Yeah, I'd use him as a reverse key. Before we get on to the last 2 races, guys, I do want to say this because we enjoy Woodbine. I've had a few people emails, not hate mail, guys, but a few people said, hey, why don't you cover Woodbine more? The bottom line for me is 2 issues, guys. Number one, they don't have a lot of great feature days of stake races, number one. And for me, and as someone, as someone who runs the podcast, guys, I got to make some of these difficult decisions. It just feels like there's a lot of negative Tapeta synthetic feelings out there from not necessarily our viewers, but just people in general. And we have to do what the people want, Paul. And I just don't think people want to see us covering a lot of synthetic races. So It's nothing against Woodbine. I love their product. I think they do a great job. I don't mind the 20-cent increments, especially for players who are maybe less inexperienced or don't have as big pocketbooks. It's just the sin, Paul. Just some people don't like betting on it, and it's a decision I got to make. But I have nothing
Well,
wrong
I
with their
think we cover
product.
I think we do cover the big days. I mean,
We do.
on a Saturday in August, we're with Saratoga and Del Mar running. We're talking about Woodbine. So
Yep.
I would say anyone who complains, you could tell them that, and if they want to keep complaining, give me a call.
Wow. Okay. I know someone in PR, I think, that can help me get through this conundrum I have. Let's go on to the last race of the Paul. You want to rant again? The last race of the Pick
Yeah.
5, which is not the King's Plate, but it is a nice
What?
race.
What? What do you
I
mean?
know. Yeah,
What do you
I
mean?
know.
The
It is
$1 million feature race doesn't close
Yeah.
out the sequence? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, it's not. It's the Catch a Glimpse, guys. This is again for 2-year-olds. This is the Philly version of the race 6. So they're bookending the 2-year-old sprint stake races, which I think is actually clever and interesting.
Yep.
These are for the girls. It's a field of 13. Yikes. Wow, big field. And there's a pretty I don't know about well known, but a nice horse is the favorite. Number 7, Bullet. Cassie and Husbands, 2-1 money line. That is the 7 horse. Let's see. Now, Paul and I are 4 for 4, by the way, with our top picks. And they all are not favorites. We can't possibly in a field of 13. Possibly, Paul. I mean,
Can't happen.
That can't possibly. Oh, no. It happened again. I'm going 12, 2, 7. Pete's going 2, 4, 7. And Paul's going 12, 1, 7. Just to let everyone know how this works.
We don't talk.
I put my picks in on the screen or on my software. I put my picks in first, and then I go to my emails and put in Pete's and Paul's, and I look at it afterwards. And this was like a wow moment, Paul. Like 5 races in a row. Either Paul and I are going to be unbelievable on Saturday, or we're just going to, we're going to bow our heads to Pete and say we are complete idiots, and maybe Pete is right. Pete, I got to go to you first though, because again, you're going with a horse that's different than the two of us. Will Rain, I like a lot. This is another Cassie Kimura. To me, Pete, Will Rain is very similar to the 2 horse in the first leg, a first-time starter who did not win but showed a lot of promise and now gets to stretch out. Very similar profile to me as that first leg 2 that's in this race now.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because that's I was thinking the same thing, because when you played the replay of the 2 earlier, it had a couple of similarities too, because the thing I liked about Will Rain here, if you did watch, we don't need to watch the replay, it's nothing that
we'll
big.
watch it. It's interesting. This horse
But
was goofy as all get out.
It was goofy, and you sort of had to, he didn't really run straight. And I thought if he ran straight, he could have got to that horse potentially, or even if he didn't, I think he just could have finished. He could have made it even closer, or she. I apologize.
She's the 5.
Yes.
Right here. She's all over. I'm going to show the head on too, but go ahead.
Yeah, and actually, I think even before that, there might have been a couple little stutters too. So it was just not a clean run. It was a typical, first time starter, and it wasn't there. That horse too was coming way out.
And that was the winner, by the way.
That's the winner. Yeah, and it was a little, I'm sure the head on would have been a little funky to watch there, and then even here again, just never got straight, and then looked like we fade a little bit, and then came on again late, got the whip, and then just exploded a little bit, but the 2 sort of got away there. But I just think there's a lot to like about this horse. And Cassie, 37% wins, 63% in the money, second time starters in graded stakes turf races. So, and it was a pretty decent sample size too. It wasn't like some 3 out of 10 kind of thing. So I just think
but jumping around here it is, and there's no inquiry either.
No, it was a little. Yeah, what'd you think about that? It was a little funny.
I don't like that. I mean, there was hurting, but anyway, this horse gets really goofy, jumps, leads, and then you said the jockey right here goes left-handed, comes out. Then Jock has switched right-handed. I mean, this horse is just,
and that's Pratt too. So Pratt's doing everything he can to get this horse straight.
Look at even after the wire. This horse has no idea what he's doing or she's doing.
I guess that's the only thing, because this is a pretty big field, and if he has to navigate like that again in only his second start, you don't know if that stuff's going to be ironed out. It was only July 18th, so it's not like he's had a ton of time. But I feel like if this horse runs straight and gets a clear path, I think he could be pretty tough. She could be pretty tough. Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she's talented, Paul. Actually, Paul doesn't have this horse anywhere. Wow. Okay. Paul doesn't like Gary Barber. I've heard he's just, not a fan. And
I
Yeah,
love Gary Barber.
hates War of Will. I think doesn't like War of Will.
nah, anyway, warming, Paul. This horse to me was ultra impressive, like really impressive. Again, a Graham Motion second time starter, Eclipse Thoroughbreds, checks all the boxes, comes out of a live race. The way that she did it, Paul, we have to watch the replay. This was not the easiest trip. She was in between horses. I know some people poo me on that, but with younger horses, I think it matters. She was in between horses, guys. She's got a huge reach. She put away a bunch in late stretch. I don't know about the 12 hole here, Paul. That might be a little bit tricky. But boy, this horse got some talent. I really, based on the breeding, I have a gut feeling we're going to see this one in San Diego. I really do if she continues to improve.
Yeah, I'm still in shock that you and I went 5 for 5 on the same picks. Hopefully they'll be 5 for 5 when it counts.
Kidding.
But
she's the 9 here, everyone, who's going to be in between horses.
In between,
really professional, right, Paul? Moving up.
Yeah. This turns out to be a winning move by Manny because he really, if he tried to go all the way around that early, I don't think he gets there. And this is the inside out move. He went in, and he's now going to go out and come get this horse. I agree. I thought this was a really good race.
I really liked, when horses split like that, Paul. It's not easy to split like 3 or 4 across the track and still go on with it, right? Sometimes we see horses split and then they have to use energy to get through that hole, right, guys? But this horse, first time started, not only used energy, Paul, to get into that tracking trip and then use energy again to get in between horses. This is like, I love watching. I mean, look, I'm a little bit of a sicko. I get it. But this is the kind of replay I really enjoy watching because I think this horse made more than one move. And then as we watch the stretch, guys, she still goes on with it. This was, I can't say enough. I was just really impressed. Look at the reach here too, guys. See how she's like reaching out with her fronts? This is just really impressive to me. But, I mean,
it's and it was a 15-1 shot on top, so we get it. But got the jump and holds off a good-looking 4 to 5 shot here, and wins by a couple of lengths. Which say, well, it's a couple of lengths. Well, in a turf sprint, a couple of lengths is more than a couple of lengths, if that makes any sense. So, that's a good ride. Pete, you mentioned the stat with Motion, 2 for whatever in stakes wins. I'm going to have him hopefully double that total Saturday.
Yeah, that's what you're hoping
I've taken
for,
him in 2 stakes races.
It's funny. The horse who ran 4th there was the horse who then came back to beat my 2 in the next one.
Yes, correct. I was going to mention that.
Yeah. The only thing my biggest problem, because I like that horse, I had that horse as sort of an A-level horse as well, was the outside post at this configuration just has not been, I think I'm looking at it, if you go from either like 9 out, they're 9 through 12 they've only had, and it's 1 for 23. So it's just, I thought the post was a little tough, especially second time out in a pretty big field like this. That was my only real knock on that horse. Otherwise, looks really impressive.
We need a lot more likes. I don't know, are people falling asleep? Please hit that like button below the video player. We'd appreciate it. We also would have more comments below the video player. I don't think that's my fault, guys. I don't really emphasize that enough, but we will respond. I've seen Pete and Paul respond to comments below the video player, and I always do. So please feel free to comment below the video player after the show or next few days if you have any thoughts. Pete, what's wrong with Bullet? I mean, none of us have this horse in the top 2. This horse is 2 to 1. Was great in the prep for Royal Ascot, which he didn't end up going, and that was a win in your end to Ascot, and then came back and won by 4. What is it? $425,000 buy. What is it about this horse that we're a little wishy-washy on?
I don't know. Nothing really bad. I thought that the horse maybe just would like to go a little bit longer, even than the stretch to the whatever we're doing here. What are we doing? 6.5?
6.5, yeah.
Even more than the 6.5. I thought the horse might like that, but she's been super impressive. She's done nothing wrong. She cost a bunch of money. She's shown the ability to, in the debut came from second to last, and then last time sat a much more tactical trip. I didn't have there was no negative reasons, at some point. Time Form didn't love the races. Time Form, if you look back
I
in the
agree.
debut, that was weird because Time Form actually has a lower figure on the debut than the buyer, which never happens, very, very, very rarely happens, and didn't love the second one. So if you like Time Form a little bit more, the races were a little less impressive, even though they were pretty comfortable
Yeah.
wins. And then here, you're seeing on the screen there. I mean, there is pace, and this horse should be able to work out a pretty solid trip. I think if you could sit that second flight, I think Bullet has a nice shot. I think has as good a shot as any. I don't know. Do you guys have knocks, or did you have to
I
pick
didn't think she was
somebody?
that much faster than Bunch, and she's
That
2 to
was the
1
thing,
morning
2 to
line. That
1.
was all.
Yeah,
Nothing
2 to
really
1.
creative.
Can we? So Paul Conlon asked me to shout out the 4 here because that was one of my
Sure.
second choice there, and I think is one of my best. Has it in my best bets play. I just like this horse. I think
Ooh.
if you look at the last one, and again, not anything we have to watch a race for, but just broke really poorly, and you could see there was 7th by 14,
Okay.
was just way too far back. The pace was pretty moderate to slow, so there wasn't much to close into. The
Yeah.
horse was still coming late, took some money. The second place horse came back with a next out winner. It's got Cassie. Cassie has some great stats. I just think there's going to be. You showed the time form. There looks like the pace could heat up front. And I think this one, which not to spoil our best bets, but this is who I had in the try key box, even though it wasn't
Yeah.
if I'm remembering correctly, even though it wasn't my top choice. I think this horse is sneaky, and you might get a price just because that running line just doesn't look so good.
Well, look, I gotta,
Oh yeah, it was against the boys too. Thank you, Paul.
and that
It
was Cairo Caper, who we
Yep.
all like a little bit. Let's just
Yes,
watch the
yes.
4 real quick. There's the 4 breaking slow, and let's just fast forward and see what kind of run. Whoop, let's back it up a little bit. Here she is making that. She did get an inside-outside move there, but she's coming on late, and she just had too much to do, and the speed held together. She's on
the
a
top
wrong.
two,
She's
the
on a
top
wrong
two
lead
are
a
the
little
ones.
bit here. I'm not sure I love the way she's running in general, but she is coming on late. She's a work in progress. You're getting a price in a big field, Pete. So look, I'm not going to knock it. It's 15 to 1. Why not? She
Yeah,
is
and
going to have
again,
to
I'm not
improve though
sure
quite a
about the
bit.
front end. I'm not sure about the win end, but I definitely
Okay.
like as an
Why
underneath
not?
price
All right.
for sure.
Very good. Guys, let's get to the big one. And the big one is the King's Plate. And we're going to talk about this race for about 10 minutes, and we'll wrap up the show, maybe 15, because we have no rant to do because we already did it. King's Plate's always a fun race, guys. And I looked at this race quite a bit. I watched a lot of replays. There's a lot of preps. There's the Marine, the plate trial, the blah, blah, blah. And you have to sort of figure out which races are best for preps. And most importantly, which races are going to be best, which horses are going to be best going forward. By the way, you might like this, Pete, from Chris Mack. Woodbine Clocker, Shifty, worked the 26th of July, training track 101 and 4, which apparently was a good move that day. So
Nice.
Chris Mack apparently
Thanks,
has some intel, and Chris, we appreciate that. The Kings, now Paul, we're 5 for 5. I mean, come on.
Can't happen.
I don't think we've ever been, well, we don't usually talk about 6 races, but I don't know if there's been a time we actually had all 5 correct. We can't, or not correct, but the same, hopefully correct. I can't imagine that we have the King's Plate the same. I mean, do we? Here it comes. We do not. No. I am going 273. Pete is going 375, and Paul is going 437. Let me edit this and scroll it on the bottom of the screen. This is a fun race, and there's 2 obvious horses on the top end, at least by the wagering, the morning line in the King's Plate. It's $1 million race, guys, 1.25 miles. Only for 3-year-olds. It's always a big field. It's a field of 13. You got the 7, My Boy Prince, who's on our thumbnail for the YouTube show at 7 to 5. And then you got Essex Serpent at 3 to 1. Another Cassie, ridden by husbands. What's interesting here, guys, is Paul and I are not going with one of the two top choices. And Pete has a horse in third that is definitely live. I wasn't trying to get cute here, guys. I just wasn't sure that those top two really laid over this field. And this race just always produces some strange results, or can produce strange results. I see you guys shaking your head in agreement. Paul, let's go to you first. You're going to go with a filly. And if you're not familiar with this race, ladies and gentlemen, fillies have done very well in this race. Maybe our wise sooth Paul has a stat for that, or maybe Pete does also. But I know for a fact fillies have done very well in this race. And Paul is going to go with one of those fillies, the number 4, Caitlin Her Greatness, for Rafael Hernandez, Kevin Attard. Nice juicy price here, and does get a 5-pound weight allowance, which may or may not make a difference. Paul, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I think her wide trip might be a small factor from her last race as to why you like her today, other than the obvious fact is that she's talented.
Going into last year, fillies had won 5 of the last 12, by the way. So
wow, 5 of the last 12. Okay, go ahead.
And I don't have last year's, but that's
okay.
going to have to do it. But that was going into last year. Well, I think what's important here, Howard, that this race has a lot of similarities to our Kentucky Derby in that in our Kentucky Derby for the 3-year-old males, obviously, we have 20 horses, none of whom have run the distance, 1.25 miles. Well, here you have 13 fillies, none of whom have run the distance. So there is some speculation involved. It's similar to us. I'm going with the filly by Omaha Beach out of a Giants Causeway mare. And someone say, well, she got caught last time in 1 1/8 miles. Well, that's okay. That was a stretch out from 7.5. So I really think she moves forward off that. It's third off the layoff. I already talked about Attard. The Omaha Beaches are running well, and they're running well long. And the filly history in the race, you mentioned the trip last time, Howard, and top it off with 12-1, and that's how I landed.
I have no problem with this horse. I've got her as a B, as in Caitlin Her Greatness. I think she can win. Pete, I don't know how you feel about this horse. I know you don't have her in her top 3. By the way, it's Sienna Farm and Windstar on the ownership. So these guys would like to win, a classic Canadian race. Pete, did you give any thoughts to the 4 here?
Yeah, I had her as an A. I would probably, though, if I had 5 A's, though, so I would probably, she's one that I would maybe move to the B line. But yeah, she was one of the top contenders for me. Just didn't make my top 3.
Paul Conlon loves Paul Halloran's pick. Wow, bold move, according to Paul. I like it. All right,
very bold, Paul. Very impressive.
Very nice. Let's go to you, Pete. I almost picked your horse on top. I was very close to doing it, and I just backed off. Not necessarily because of the price. I'll talk about the 3 a little bit after you talk. Essex Serpent, only 3 lifetime starts. First time stretching out in the Marine. Won nicely with an 89 buyer and beat a horse called Cameo Performance. We know that horse very well. I loved that horse 2 back. I didn't love him last time, and he beat me at Ellis. So that was a very live race that Essex Serpent is coming out of. I guess the big question for me is the 1/16 to 1.25 miles is quite a big step up in class, but is bred to do it.
Yeah, that was the thing. I mean, again, like Paul astutely mentioned, most of these horses, all these horses are stretching out to do something that they haven't done before. So there's always that bit of question, but I think the breeding suggests that this one shouldn't be a problem. And then if you looked at what are we watching here? Is this the last race?
This is Essex Serpent's win. You might want to, the Cameo Performance is the 1, and the 6 is also a horse you like in third. So you might want to talk about all 3 of these.
Yeah, I like that horse too. I think the Essex Serpent just got back to doing what I think he wants to do, is to be more forwardly placed. When he ran against My Boy Prince 2 back and he lost, the problem was he just broke really poorly, and he was way in the back, and that was unlike it for him. And he still made up ground, but My Boy Prince is too good and got away. So I think now if Essex Serpent can get back to what he does and be more forwardly placed, get a better trip, I think he's just pretty talented. Again, two back, who knows what he would have done if he would have broke better. And if he could have beat my boy Prince two back, he's a huge chalk in this race. I would imagine coming off 3 wins. What are you going to say? You got a
Did you
thought there?
notice the undergirth? And you're like, what the heck is he talking about? Did you see what was going on with this 5? I just want to show everyone, and I'm not saying it mattered, but I just find it a little bit weird. Do you see this
Yeah.
this loose like tie on here? This can't be like a good thing. I'm not saying it hurt the horse, but you see how this got loose, and if you watch the beginning of the race, that wasn't there. This is like what ties on the saddle underneath. So you see it's fine right there. I don't know if you can look carefully, but
Yeah.
it's tied on fine, and then somehow got loose during the race. I tell you, I'm a sicko in deep dive, and got loose. And I mean, I don't know. You see it like the thing is like dangling and just like, I don't know. That can't be real comfortable. I'm going to give the horse maybe an extra buy or two. I just thought it'd be interesting just to point that
Yeah.
out. But this horse has got a long stride, and that 3/4 time, Pete, of 1:10.3. Now look, every day is very different. I get it, blah blah blah. That's a fast 3/4 time for 3-year-olds this time of year. So this horse
I mean,
ran.
the time form pace fractions are for the race were pretty fast, and
Yep.
so it's not like he just breezed on the lead and just loafed
No.
around the track last time. So he was cooking a little bit. So here I'm hoping he can maybe sit a little bit, maybe sit off a little bit, maybe second, third, not have to push the fractions the whole way, but. I just think this is a pretty talented horse, and I think the distance shouldn't be an issue. And then I like the works coming out of the last one. Again, I always love a horse that runs well, was running well going in, and then comes out and just works really well
Yeah.
and just seems to hold that form. I say that a lot, but I really like that, especially in a race like this that's pretty contentious.
I got an important question for you, Paul and Pete, and I think it's something that needs to be discussed. I know we're talking about this race a little longer, but hell, we have time, and this is the feature. Caitlin Her Greatness, Paul, is coming out of race on July 20th. Essex Serpent is coming out of race on June 29th. That's 4 weeks apart. As a owner, and Paul, you're an owner, and I'm an owner too, and Pete's an owner as well, actually. Would you guys prefer your horse having more or less time going into a race like the Kentucky Derby or the King's Plate here? I can see positive and negatives for both. Paul, I'll go to you first. The fact that Caitlin Her Greatness is coming back a lot more quickly, that means she has less time to develop, but she has more recency, as opposed to Essex Serpent, who has a lot more time to develop since his last race, but does not have recency. I think it's an interesting question to talk about for a minute. Your thoughts, Paul, on that?
Well, obviously it comes down to trainer preference, and Attard is certainly not afraid to run them. I mean, I think you would say stretching out to the 1.25 miles, your instinct would be you'd rather have a little more time. But having said that, when you're dealing with trainers at this level, like Attard, like Cassie, million or not, they're not going to put their horse in a situation where they think he or she is going to fail. I mean, I wish trainers would run horses more often in general. I think they have created a self-fulfilling prophecy that horses need more time. Horses go to the racetrack every day, except usually the day after a workout or the day or two after a race. Horses are born to run. That's why the tracks had to stay open during COVID. They had to let them train. You can't just keep them in the barn. They're born to run, not walk. So I wish they would run more often in general. So, do I think it's ideal? What is this? 3 weeks, Howard? 27 for no, it's 4 weeks. 4 weeks off the last race. Yeah, that 4 weeks should be enough to run under any circumstances. 3, 3 you might be getting a little sketchy stretching out, but no, I have no issue at all with this horse going on 4 weeks.
Pete, quick thoughts on this conversation?
Yeah, I agree. I like to run a little bit, but I wonder if for Essex Serpent, if that last race maybe, again, it was a pretty hot pace. It was pretty contentious. I wonder if that race just took a little bit out and they're like, let's give him a little more time before we. I mean, it's again, you hate to try and put yourself in the head of the trainer because you just never know what they're thinking. Could be the horse, maybe the horse itself gives the impression that they like it shorter or they like a longer break. It's hard to know, but we know going into the Derby, they're not as successful. What is it past like the 6-week mark? They haven't been as successful. So again, if that's a statistic or a range that you're looking at, maybe it's not the best, but who knows?
Yeah, I like that like 4 to 5 week span.
Me
I
too.
don't like the 8-9 week thing. I don't know what it is. I just don't like it. One of the reasons why I like the two guys at a price, the number 2 Raffaru. If my boy Prince is the bee's knees here and is the best horse in this race, someone needs to explain what's wrong with Raffaru at like 6 times the price, because Raffaru only has 2 lifetime starts, guys. That last one was against my boy Prince. Now I know my boy Prince, who's the 5, and Raffaru's the 7. My boy Prince did break slow. There's not about it. Hopped out of the gate. We're going to see it right here. Watch the 5, my boy Prince. Here's the 7, Raffaru. Okay, jumped at the start and broke slow, but really only lost like, a length and a half. Not a big deal. I'm just going to go to the stretch, guys. Here's Raffaru, the 7. Again, this is Raffaru's only second lifetime start in this race, while my boy Prince is much more seasoned and obviously much more accomplished. Go to the stretch, guys. Watch carefully the 7 here, Raffaru. Here's my boy Prince, got the jump on Raffaru. And Raffaru is coming. If you watch carefully, guys, the jock was trying to go left-handed and try to keep the horse straight, and he kept lugging in a little bit. Does that sound like anyone we know? But watch the 7, guys. You see, he's in the 3 path, ready to like maybe go by the field, right? And now watch. You see how he's lugging in? You see how the jock is trying with his left hand, you see his head, guys? You see, you have to watch. You see how he's like lugging in? You got to watch carefully. And the jock eventually says, okay, I'm not going to try to go to the outside. I'll just keep going to the inside. And he does straighten up, and he doesn't really go past. Obviously, he doesn't win the race, but watch past the wire. I mean, he's not asking, guys, right? He's not asking. He goes by my boy Prince. Again, people can say Howard, who cares? It's after the wire. I care. I think it matters, guys. He had the energy. He just couldn't keep him straight and steer him correctly. He's not Sierra Leone, but I do see a little bit of similarity there. And again, if my boy Prince, guys, is the favorite, what's wrong with going with Raffaru at a much bigger price? So I don't know if the horse is going to win. Maybe I'm, nitpicking, but I think you need to in this kind of race. My boy Prince, I think, is the horse to beat. We haven't even mentioned this horse very much. I just don't think he lays over the field, guys. And are we 100% positive he's better a mile and a quarter? I don't think we are. And he's 7-5 borderline. Thoughts on either one of you on my boy Prince here?
I like your 2 there. The 2 was my fourth horse I had as an A as well. I do agree. Like Jim Pilar said, I don't like Munger as much. And just from watching replays, a few of his rides, and not that was his fault, but for some reason, I think he maybe gets outridden a little bit in the replays I've watched. But my boy Prince, there's no knock against him. I mean, he's pretty awesome. He's a real fun horse. He's just a great horse. He's tactical. He can come off. He can get on the lead. There's not a lot. There you go.
Come on, Chris.
Well, then it's a lock for second, then, right? I mean, that's what Sierra Leone likes to do. Just hit second, right?
I mean, Jim mentions the rider, Paul. Okay, the rider isn't as well known, but he knows the horse, and obviously the horse is talented. And if you have someone else on the 2, if you got Rafael Hernandez, this horse is going to be 4-1. Instead, we're going to get 7-1. The guy is 15% jockey. It's not like he doesn't know how to win. And it's Stronach. I don't know. I think the 2 is really interesting. Paul,
yeah.
here.
Well, no, I think Jim's point was, Jim knows this track, and that jockey wasn't quite at the the same level, which we certainly get that. I think it looked to me like how the horse just didn't corner well on that turn. I know what you're saying, and he did lug in a little down the stretch. I think he maybe got to a point where he knew he was not going to win the race, and that was certainly the move to finish second. So yeah, I got no issue with this horse at a price. I picked a 12-1 shot. Who the hell am I to say anything?
Again, I mean, that was my boy Prince's 10th lifetime start. Doesn't the 2 have the right to improve, guys? That was only his second time. This is his second time starter. I mean, so I don't know. I think we all feel the same way. My points is formidable. Essex Serpent can win. I know, Pete, you went with the 2 chalks on top, but you wouldn't be surprised. You're going deep in this race, I'm sure. I think
Yep.
you have to spread in this race, guys. And whether Price wins or not, I don't know. But I just don't think the favorites, like the 3 and the 7, like are clearly the best in this race at all. I could be proven wrong Saturday, obviously, but I think you're supposed to search for a price here, Pete and Paul, to some extent.
I agree. Chris Mack, King's Plate, number 5, Midnight Mascot, another one of my horse. I like that Chris keeps bringing up my horses that I like with long shots that I like with good works. So I think that one's tough, and I think that's a horse that's just getting better, and another one that you hope to break. You don't want to be too far back in a big field like this. So I'm with you, Chris. I like that horse, and that would definitely be an A-level horse for me, the 5 horse, Midnight Mascot, 10-1.
Whether the W word cooperates or not, it's not going to be like a rain out. It's supposed to be scattered showers, thunderstorms, whatever happens. Guys, whether they're on the turf, off the turf, whatever, this is a really fun sequence. I'm glad we covered this sequence. We do every year. This particular one seems like a lot of fun. It's a lot of combination of horses that seem logical, Paul, with short prices, and maybe some prices. And in those logical races, if you get prices, this thing could pay. I mean, for 20 cents, there's no reason, even for 20 cents, it could pay 4 digits. We've seen it before. So people have to structure their tickets really carefully here, Paul, as we'll show the spot plays here in just a second.
Yes, I agree. And I think you brought up a good point earlier. I think we're all accustomed to playing 50 cents or $1 because those are the, as long as you stay away from those moronic 20-cent jackpot bets at Gulfstream and Churchill. But yeah, you don't have to play it for 20 cents. And don't use horses who have 3.5 legs just because they're going to be 20-1 and you can throw them in. It's only going to cost you an extra $4. So I like the sequence. I'm certainly going to be playing. I always play the horses I talk about. I put my money where my big mouth is, and I will be. It's going to be tough. You got Saratoga Saturday and Del Mar starts at 5:00. But I will be following along.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Let's go to our best bets. I'm looking, Paul, because I swear on my parents' grave I put your best bets in here, and now for some reason.
Well, I know what it is.
I can't find it. All right, well, let's go to Pete first here. Pete's best bets, his plays, are going to be in race 7. He's putting the number 6 horse to win in race 7. And again, you're going with that kind of trifecta play. In this case, a tri-key box, which I want you to explain to everyone, Pete, with that 4 horse Shifty in race 10.
Yeah, so tri-key box is just basically where you get the 4 in all 3 spots, and you get the 2, 5, 7, 8, 12 in the other 2, and in all 3 spots as well. So it's basically like any other box where you're getting your key horse with all the other horses in there. So 2, 5, 7, 8, 12 have to finish out the other 2 spots. And even though the Shifty wasn't my top choice, I thought that horse has a good chance to get a piece and could even win it and would be a big price. So, and I had a couple other prices out of the other 5 too. So I think that's one that could pay if the 4 can get in there.
I like it. Paul, I greatly apologize. Honestly, I have no idea what happened, but can you just go ahead and talk about, I'll take pizza, talk about your plays, your best bet here for the pick 5.
Yes, well, as a matter of protest and the structure of the sequence, my play was out of the sequence. I used the King's Plate.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. As you know, that's not in the sequence. So my play was a win place on the 4, my best bet, my top pick, I should say, and then exactas with the 4 over the 3, 5, and 7. And I would now add the 2 based on the strong feelings of my favorite uncle.
Oh, well, I hope that helps you. So he's going with number 4, Caitlin, Her Greatness, 12-1. Wait a minute. I just realized something. You didn't like this horse because Caitlin Clark, did you? Wait a minute. Now.
We
caught him, Pete. Wait a minute now.
No, I wondered if that was the first thing I thought was the Caitlin Clark horse. I thought of that even Howard, I saw her name.
I thought about it for the first time when you just said it. I swear. But let's see, 3-year-old.
We believe you.
Let's see. This horse would have been named. Yeah, this horse would have been named last year. So Yeah, well, hats off to the Sienna Farm and Windstar farm people. Yes, I feel even better.
Now we
I
like her
wish
even more.
I almost wore my "If you break it, you own it" shirt. I wish I did.
Interesting. I'm trying to. I don't know why I'm. Okay, there we go. All right. I just realized that now looking at it. All right. Anyway, good luck with that, Paul. I like your pick. I think the Phillies got a shot for sure. Here's my best bets. Race 6, I like the number 2. That was boy, I can't remember the name now, but that was one of the that was the first turf race that we talked about where that the
Test
second time
score.
starter. Thank
Test
you.
score.
Test score who ran against Governor Sam. So I like test score quite a bit. I'm hoping to get 7-2 would be absolutely fine with me. And then in race 9, I'm throwing that 10, cool kiss, whatever. That horse, which I think is interesting, in first and second exactas. I'll go 4, 6, 7 over 10, 4, 6, 7 over 10. I'll also, in a smaller exacta, put the 10 on top with the 4, 6, 7. So in a race, I think that's the never surprised race, guys, which I think is pretty wide open. Gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun. We already did the rant, so I'll just quickly let either one of you guys talk about anything on this card. The Alabamas this weekend, Bed and Booze and Boys covered. The Grizzly Bear is not going to be there. She's going against the boys in the Travers. You'll be there, Paul, for that. Any quick thoughts? Anything else this weekend? Paul, you go first.
No, fiercest school in the paddock today for anyone watching the Naira show on Fox Sports, and boy, he looked good. I really think, and I have Dornock on the brain because I just wrote a 2,000-word story on recapping the Haskell for Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred magazine. Had a chance to talk to Larry Conley, the majority owner, and Danny Gargan, and so I think we are looking. And I know we'll talk next week. I think we are looking at a really, really good race. And Howard, I don't want to disappoint you, but after Monday in Saratoga, there will be no rain the rest of the week, I predict, based on my reading of the radar.
Let's hope you're right, because they got off to a great start with the weather. And since we left, Paul, the weather's been I don't know, I think Saratoga misses us. The weather's been a little bit shaky. We're gonna have a lot of coverage of the Travers, by the way, and that whole card on, of course, this wonderful podcast that we so much enjoy to bring to you. Pete, final thoughts on this weekend.
Yeah, this is a cool sequence. Again, a good choice because I like Woodbine as a whole. I like the long stretch. I like the closers usually have a decent opportunity here, and I think this was a really fun card. And I didn't the Alabama. I don't know, Paul. I didn't handicap the Alabama yet, but the Alabama, just name recognition wise, just it didn't come up super exciting to me for a race that I usually really like. So.
I think historically it's the top 3-year-old filly race in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Oaks is the day before the Derby, but the 27 Eclipse Award winners have come out of the Alabama. So the Alabama is. I agree with you, Pete. There's doesn't look like there's any Royal Deltas in there. Ironically, the race would have had a lot more panache, if you will, if Torpedo Anna stayed in, but it also would have been could have been a 5-horse field non-bettable race. So I think Candide is going to be over bet 7-5 morning line. I'm going to be looking to beat her.
Oh, is she so? I didn't see the morning line. Is she that low? Yeah, she doesn't strike me as a 7-5 kind of horse. So I'd be looking to beat her. I don't know, Howard, if you looked at that one yet, but
Unfortunately, work has gotten in the way, and I have not looked at Saratoga at all until tomorrow.
Me neither.
I'll be
I just
deep
looked
diving.
at the names. Yeah.
when I get home, I'll be deep diving into Saratoga because hell, I'm writing the Saratoga Power Pick, so I better be. But no, I haven't had time, guys. But welcome to back to full time work. That's the way.
Buy the Power Picks. That's my last message. Buy Del Mar, Saratoga, and our standard. Buy them all. They're all. Look at the website. They're all out there. All the information you need. There's been a lot of good winners. Our boy Noah's been killing it in his picks across Del Mar and Saratoga. So buy the Power Picks. That's
and Charlie wrote a very detailed Power Picks for tomorrow for Saratoga. So
excellent.
Look forward to it. It's a 6-page Saratoga Power Pick coming from Charlie Freeman. So look, I love the enthusiasm of these younger guys. Who, by the way, Show 100 is coming up on for Bet and Booze in the next few weeks. So it's awesome, guys. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. Really appreciate it. For my co-hosts, Paul Howard and Pete Visco, it's been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 367 of Picks and Ponies. Crush your bets north of the border at Woodbine this weekend. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.